Hi, I'm Angelina. I'm here today with the Lincoln Institute interviewing Matin, and we're going to go over a recent Jubilee video that has amassed over 10 million views called 25 Far-Right Conservatives versus One Progressive, where Matin here has received significant backlash on social media for his views on immigration and different world issues.
Well, thank you, Angelina, for having me, and to the Lincoln Institute. It's a pleasure to be here. It's always a pleasure to be here. I was born and raised in Iran, and I came to the United States in 2016, and I became a citizen in 2022. And I got involved with the conservative movement almost 3 years ago, and that involves, like campus activism and just being a vocal force when it comes to like all this like super progressive protests, especially like the ones related to the Israel and Palestine conflict.
So, in your words, what happened in this Jubilee video? Why did it blow up? Why did it get 10 million views? Why were people so angry? Could you describe that to us?
So that's a like a can of worms to get into. I mean, obviously, like one of the most viral parts of it was when we had someone on our side that was okay with being called a fascist.
Mm-hmm.
Just laughed it off, and yeah, I'm a fascist. And then we had like two other instances, of like similar virality and craziness, because I'm proud to be a conservative, but I don't share extreme views like that. One could call, your views towards, Israel are extreme. Like, no, my views towards Israel go back to my background, which a lot of these Westerners don't have any understanding of. But so when you're stuck in a room, looking like a Middle Eastern, and there are people that just don't want anyone that looks like you to be in this country, of course it's going to blow up. A lot of the viewers don't realize that it's all random. You don't choose who you're going to be teamed up with. So people think that, I willingly chose to be roomed with people that just don't want people like me in this country.
Mm-hmm.
So that was one of the things that, I believe it just increased the virality of it. And, especially like when I started talking about immigration, a lot of people are, well, you're an immigrant yourself, why are you against immigration? I'm not against immigration. It's
Right.
the illegal immigration part I have a problem with. And a lot of legal immigrants have a problem with it because we have to go through a long process to get here. And it's not easy, especially from a country that doesn't have a U.S. embassy like Iran.
Yeah.
So there's that part, and of course the part with the Israel and Palestine where Mehdi Hassan creates this hypothetical about like this Israeli sniper, which to my understanding, it hasn't happened. There are rumors that come out from Hamas and their reporters, which I can never trust. They are just the same people that are funded by the government that is destroying my country. So there's no reason for me to trust their sources.
Mm-hmm.
But when it comes to Israeli snipers, I haven't heard of like one sniping an innocent child. And the reason why I was evading that question is because I'm trying to help people understand that there's a lot of brainwashing going on in that region. And when it comes to Islam, there's just one of the core ideology of it, martyrdom, just sacrificing your life in the path of God. It gets you to heaven. It doesn't matter if you're a child or not. If you can become a martyr, it's like a highly, how should I put it, praised thing.
Mm-hmm.
So if they can get themselves to be labeled as a martyr and all that stuff, they're like, oh, we're going to go to heaven, we're going to get access to 72 virgins and have a great, afterlife.
Mm-hmm.
So when you have a population that is radicalized to the point of not caring about the sanctity of life and just wanting to reach their goals, whatever they are, we could get into their goals, but like when they don't care about the sanctity of life and all they want to do is just deal maximum damage,
Mm-hmm.
and even get themselves killed in the process or blown up, it's hard to find innocence. It's just if you try to spend time and waste time to try to find innocence, next thing you know, you yourself, your family members, your countrymen, your soldiers that are fighting alongside you are going to be dead too. So you have to make hard decisions like that.
Wow. Yeah, and I think it's a very interesting thing because a few of the debaters against
Mhm.
Mehdi Hassan were children of immigrants, I believe, and so
Yes,
for
yeah.
many of them it was a close to home issue. However, with you, I feel it was a very unique situation
Mhm.
because you did immigrate from Iran.
I think we had another Hispanic immigrant too.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right. So, could you give us a little background on that? When did you come to the United States? Did you come
Mhm.
with your family? Why? What was the reasoning behind that? So we can get a better understanding of why you're so passionate on this issue.
Well, it was 2016 when I first landed in LAX, and I was with my family. The process took about, I'd say, 5 to 6 years.
Wow.
And since there's no U.S. embassy in Iran, we had to go to a neighboring country. Like when it comes to Iran, you could go to Turkey, Armenia, UAE. We went to UAE, and then you sit down with the ambassador, you do interviews, you present documents, they do background on you. So it's a long process. So I was lucky that I was able to make it to the United States a month or 2 months before my 18th birthday, because in Iran there is mandatory military service for men, and I had no desire to serve that government. And moreover, someone like me, if I were to like stay there any longer, I would, you would probably like find me in a prison or hanging from a crane.
And why is that?
Because in high school I got myself into a lot of trouble with just the school staff, and later on like the morality police. I used to ask like pretty sensitive questions. That's what they called it, sensitive questions in theology classes. We have like 4 or 5 different courses that are just focused on the teachings of Islam, including learning the language Arabic, even though it's not our own language. So, when you like design a question so perfectly to the point where you're like, I want that person to be look bad with that question. I want them, I want this question to kind of like make fun of them at the same time. I would do that with my questions in theology classes. The students would laugh, the teacher would get mad, and at some point, they would just stop answering, and then they started reporting me, like, hey, he's asking like too many sensitive questions. Like I remember asking like why is it so sexualized? Why the concept of heaven is so sexualized? Like why do you have to like get men to like be motivated with like sexual rewards? Like how does this make this religion superior to other ones?
Yeah.
It's just it goes back to your bestial animalistic desires, not very human to me. So of course they didn't like that. And then on the other hand, I got into metal music. And wherever you go in the world, metal has like, a negative connotation to it. They're like, no, it's the music of the devil. Now imagine an Islamic government's opinion towards it.
Right.
So then I used to like share it with my friends, and they loved it. And until the school found out, and they got the morality police involved. I was handcuffed, taken to the station. They had a file on me like a criminal. And my crimes were having a cult of my own where I introduced people to the devil's music and asking sensitive questions in theology classes.
Wow.
So, and they're like, we're going to put your name on the watch list, and your family, and you're never going to have a future over here if you don't change your behavior. And right then and there, without any due process, without any respect to your human rights, which over here, thankfully, we have the Constitution, but over there, they're like, because you've done these things, you deserve a punishment. And my punishment was receiving whip thrashings on my back. Because whipping is a very common form of punishment over there. You could get whipped for drinking, for pretty much anything that goes against Islamic teachings.
Wow.
So, I'm 17 years old, I get punished for, just wanting to listen to different type of music and asking critical questions in class. So, obviously, when I come here, I do have I find a deep appreciation in me towards the Constitution.
Right.
Because not many people have experienced, governments like that in Iran. Something as simple as the First Amendment, where you like can say whatever you want. You can criticize the president. You can just go out there and protest without worrying about becoming a target practice for the morality police. Like back in 2022, I think it was, we had this movement called Woman, Life, Freedom. And they killed like at least 5,000 people in like 3 days on the streets. So, or like something like the Second Amendment, people don't realize it's there to prevent tyranny.
Yeah.
Like I keep telling people, like imagine if people in Iran had something like the Second Amendment, that government would never be able to survive as long as they have.
Wow. So it seems like you've kind of had a history of being really outspoken
Yeah.
about, the politics in Iran to now in the United States. You continue to be outspoken, going on shows on YouTube such as Jubilee and speaking about your beliefs and receiving a lot
Campuses
of
too.
Campuses too. Okay,
Yeah.
so you go to campuses, college
Yeah.
campuses.
Yeah, well, I mean, I'm part of Young America's Foundation, yeah. So I started my chapter at Goldamas College. That was the previous college I was at. I even had a lawsuit against Goldamas College for free speech violation.
I think I heard about this.
Yeah,
Could you give a quick summary?
So I had numerous tabling events, and I had a change my mind whiteboard next to my table. And there were two statements on my whiteboard that the school had an issue with. The first one was illegal immigration is a cancer upon any society in the world. And the fourth one, because I had four statements, so that was the second one. The fourth one was Hamas is a terrorist organization and they must be wiped from the face of the earth. So the school was telling me, the administrator, she was the director of all the club programs and things like that. Just telling me that, you can't use dehumanizing language, or you can't, encourage violence against a group of people. And I was like, group of people? They're a group of terrorists. And they killed Americans. They are officially classified as a terrorist organization. They've been so since 1997, I think, by the U.S. government. So I'm like, I'm not going to back down. You can't threaten me with the disciplinary action for saying something I believe is right. So fortunately, YAF was able to help me fight back, and we filed a federal lawsuit against the school, and it was a very swift victory too. In 2 months, they settled the case.
Wow.
Yeah. So because I think they knew they had no chance. Right. That was part of my my involvement with just campus activism too.
Wow. Okay. So thank you. Now I feel like I have a more well-rounded background on you. And circling back to the Jubilee video, there was 2 prompts that really got you in trouble. One was the prompt about Israel and Palestine.
Yep.
And the other, I believe, was when Mehdi Hassan had said to you, how do you feel that you're surrounded by people?
That was the immigration prompt.
The immigration prompt. The immigration prompt. I would love to hear, what are your opinions on immigration? In the United States, that's a big topic of conversation.
Always.
That's a topic that Trump ran on in 2016 and again in 2024. And I would just love to hear what your thoughts are on it. What's the solution to our immigration problem in your eyes?
So, since you mentioned the Jubilee part, for a lot of people that were watching it, it was pretty easy to notice that as the moment I started to use my background to explain the issue with immigration, Mehdi Hassan tried to derail me and pit me against other people in the room. Oh, you should go debate those people. They don't want your kind over here too. Which I agree. They don't want my kind over here too. But still, I'm here to debate you.
Right.
It's not maybe in another time, I could go debate them, but I'm here to debate him. But and he's trying to just make it into something different than just debate over immigration. But my personal views towards immigration, I'm very much pro legal immigration, but I do want some more restrictions on it, because this is similar to what I said on the video too. If I was still in Iran, I'm an American now, but if I was still over there and someone immigrated to Iran, I'd want them to learn my culture. I'd want them to assimilate, to learn the language, and to contribute positively to the society. And if they're not, they should go back. It's the same thing with the United States. I feel by working, by paying taxes, by being a good student in school, and learning the language, I've assimilated pretty good to this country, and I've contributed positively to this country. But there are those who just don't care. They're here to, I guess you could call, leech off the welfare system and the government, or make money over here, send it back to their home. And I don't like that. No one should like that for their country, because you gotta care about your own first. It's like the concept that J.D. Vance one time mentioned, ordo amoris. It's a Christian concept. It's you gotta focus on yourself, your family, and then your country first before you go out there to fix the world.
Right.
And it's just my problem with it is that it's not so much this administration, because we've had a lot of deportations so far. We need a lot more too, but the previous one, you have people that come here with the hope of just getting paid by the government for doing nothing.
Mm-hmm.
How are you able to sustain as a country like that? And you gotta test people based on their merits, on their skills, and during those 5 years that you're waiting to become a citizen, you gotta see if that person has taken the effort to learn the language and to find a job. It doesn't have to be a lucrative job, as long as you're paying tax. So, but as long as someone's able to fulfill those, I'm perfectly fine with them being here. But when it comes to illegal immigration, absolutely against it, no matter what, unless you present some very valid asylum case. But then again, that wouldn't be illegal. That would still be considered legal when it's accepted.
Yeah. And I feel like your view is the view of many conservatives. Naturally, when conservatives are talking about, solving our immigration problem, they are saying they do not support illegal immigration. They feel that there should be processes in place to make sure that people who are coming across are going to be productive members of society. That's what I hear most of the time. But in watching this video, it really, it blew me away how vocal people were that they felt immigration should stop altogether. In some cases, some debaters had said that.
I remember, yeah.
Yeah. Why do you feel there's been this big push for this more extreme, some might say, view? What do you think has caused this? And I would just be curious to know.
Well, I've always told people, especially when I'm talking to people over the topic of immigration, it's the illegal immigration that have made legal immigration more difficult in this country and have given a bad name to legal immigration. So the solution is just to just like Trump's been doing, reduce the illegal immigration as much as possible, and over time, people's views towards immigration are going to change too. Because right now, we just finished Biden's administration after 4 years of 50 million illegals coming in. So obviously, people are frustrated with that, and some people are going to take it a step further and blame it on legal immigration too. So I think that's one of the reasons why there's a lot of frustration, and another reason why is that because of leftist policies, even with legal immigrants, they're like, "Oh no, you don't need to assimilate. You don't need to do this. You don't need to do that. Just be proud of who you were and your culture." You could still be proud and learn the new culture. You could still leave the garbage from your culture and bring the good stuff in. Assimilating doesn't mean losing pride in your roots, but liberal policies like to create a sort of divide between that. It's okay, just keep your previous way of life and beliefs and all that stuff. Don't worry about learning the language. And I think that's why people get frustrated with it. People who were born here get frustrated with it because, these people don't appreciate our country and our values. Even though they came here legally. So I think that's one of the reasons.
Yeah, I think you're spot on that issue. I've heard a lot of that, how many Americans feel that with immigration. Immigrants want to come over and they want to take all the best parts of the United States, make use of our system of jobs and then go back to their home country after.
Or send the money back.
Yeah. And so without assimilating in any way. And I know assimilating might look different for each person. But I just think of, you go move to Japan, and you want to live there. The natural thing is to try to learn Japanese. If you move to Italy, you try to learn Italian. But when people come to the United States, it seems that there's not as big of a push to want to assimilate in that way, at least with language. And I think it's an interesting thing that you brought up.
Well, with the language part, Trump has stated that English is the official language of the land now. So maybe that'll push people to learn the language, because before that, we never had an official language.
Right.
And I think, every country in the world should have their own official language. So language is just one of the small parts, I mean, I wouldn't say small, but like, there's so many other things that people need to learn too, besides the language.
Right. Language is really just the first step.
Yeah. I mean, you need the language, to learn other stuff too.
Right.
But like when for example, like, even with legal immigration, when you bring in like a lot of people from the same area, like let's say you bring in a lot of people from, let's say, Afghanistan, which happened, after during the Afghanistan conflict and after the pullout, there were a lot of refugees that came here, or like, a lot of like the Afghani families of the people who helped the military. So like they come here and they put them in areas where there's a lot of other Afghanis. So they're going to be stuck within their own communities. And I'm not just trying to like bash on Afghanis. It's just an example. You could say, about like South American countries, like let's say Santa Ana in Orange County. There's a lot of like Hispanics, just congregate in just a small area. And because of that, they have no need to learn the language. They have everything within that area.
Right.
And, that's one of the practices that should be like, let's say, like we shouldn't do that. That's, you gotta like let people like, to go to different places and like not put them, so close, so tightly to like their bigger communities. So they have the opportunity to like, learn from other people, or like be forced to like be at workplaces or like environments that forces them to learn the language, learn English.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think, to kind of sit on the other side for a moment, it is natural for people to want to congregate with others who are like them. I could understand, coming to this country and wanting to be around people who share a similar culture, a similar language, similar values, to have that support system. And specifically with like being a conservative as an immigrant, how do you feel? Do you feel welcomed in the conservative space? I know the Jubilee video was a very unique experience in that you were with alongside far-right conservatives, which, by the way, the term far-right conservative, would you identify as far-right? What would you say is far-right?
It's funny, like, during the application process for that episode, I'm like, I'm not far-right, but leftists call me far-right. So that's what I went on there for. Like, I mean, some of the views I have towards immigration, or like, or like welfare stuff, economy, like makes me be labeled as Nazi or far right sometimes by liberals. So like, well, I mean, I guess, that's good. That's a good enough reason for me to go on it. But like, yeah, it's obvious, my views are nowhere near as extreme as, some of the other people.
Yeah.
And I think, to some extent, like the people that, we had on that Jubilee episode, for example, like the extreme far right people, to some extent, they have some similarities with people on the far left, like in terms of like, their conduct, their behavior, or like some of the views they have. Usually like, it's a common like hatred towards Jews or Israel, and like just blaming everything in the world that is wrong on Jews and Israel. And that's like one of the things I've noticed, they're like try to be louder, more disrespectful, more intolerant, and it's like not much different than people on the far left. So that's one of the things I've noticed.
Yeah. And in terms of feeling, how did you feel in that space? I mean, after all was said and done, the video is over. I know I've been on one of those sets once before. And usually there's a camaraderie afterwards. You're all chatting. You're excited for it to be over after a couple hours of filming. You chat. You get each other's socials. What was the feeling you had after filming that video, hearing the things you heard?
It wasn't the greatest feeling, to be honest. I mean, not because of the things that they said, but because, I believe views like that makes the conservative side look bad. Because I think about people in the middle, independents, or like, people who are not like far leftism, just classical liberals. I think about them, watching a video like that, watching views like that. And I'm like, are they more likely to vote Republican or vote, for conservative policies when they see people like this? No,
Mm-hmm.
like, you know, people are going to label like, oh, this is how all the MAGA people are. This is how all Trump supporters are. So that's one of the things that really frustrates me. Not because just just a few people don't like my kind over here. I mean, uh, part of it is just for clicks too. Like we all know, like the more crazy your statement is on Jubilee, the more viral you become.
Right.
So you always gotta kind of accept it with a grain of salt.
Yeah.
But no, it wasn't a great feeling. I was like, oh, when this comes out, people are gonna be like blaming everything on Trump or like the MAGA movement. They're gonna like label all of them, as like fascists and Nazis and things like that. I mean, I got called Nazis like probably thousands of times since that video came out, in my comments, in my DMs. Like, I'm probably one of the only pro-Israel people in that room.
Mm-hmm.
How's that even possible? Like, how can I be a Zionist and a Nazi at the same time?
Mm-hmm.
So that was interesting to see, but it wasn't a great feeling.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And within the Conservative Party, I know you've been on college campuses. You're very involved, even within the Lincoln Institute.
Mm-hmm.
Do you feel on the outskirts within the Conservative Party?
No. We're kind of going back to what you were. I forgot to respond to that. Like, if I feel welcome within the Conservative Party, I actually feel much more welcome within the Conservative Party than like anything on the left that I experience.
Wow.
Because before I was fully involved with like anything conservative, I noticed that when I take pride in being an American, or like take pride in just being here, and like just the American principles and the constitutions, I noticed that people on the left, they almost get disgusted by that. It's like they want immigrants to hate this country.
Mm-hmm.
And like later on I experienced the conservatives. I'm like, oh wow, like these people, like they have the exact same views as me. They appreciate the effort I've put through to assimilate to this country and to learn the language, and they appreciate that I'm thankful to be here. Whereas people on the left, they're like I said, it's almost like they want you to hate this country, and I don't like that. That's why that's one of the things that actually pushed me more towards the conservative movement.
Yeah, I mean, I couldn't agree with you more. And just to relate for a second, I'm I guess you could call me Mexican American. One of my parents has Mexican descent, and I caught so much flack from Democrats and liberals for being a Mexican American who's conservative.
Like, you're white. You've been whitewashed.
Yeah, like as if it's a total betrayal.
Yeah.
And I really did notice that difference, that I feel more welcomed by the Conservative Party, who sees how much I love this country, than the Democratic Party, who just constantly is trying to put you in a victim mentality and make you absolutely hate who you are because of some quote-unquote oppression.
Yep.
So I really relate to you in that way. And I'm glad that you feel welcomed within the Conservative Party. I'm glad that you're a proud American. And I think that kind of leads us into this next topic, which is you went on another Jubilee video shortly after the 25 far-right conservatives versus Mehdi Hassan.
That's Friday, I think.
Yeah, it just came out this past Friday.
I think 8 days ago or 9 days ago, something like that.
From where we're filming, it'll probably be a little bit longer ago. But tell me, what's the video titled? What happened in there? It's Spectrum, right?
Yes.
Okay, so tell me about that.
So that one, they initially titled it as "Was Moving to America Worth It?" Last night, I think I checked it, and I think it was like, I can't remember, but they changed the title. But the initial title was like, was Moving to America Worth It? So it was 7 of us, 4 females and 3 men, and like someone from Lebanon, someone from Philippines, another one from Indonesia, me from Iran, someone who was born in the UK but has an Indian background, and what else? And another lady from Panama. So they ask us, different prompts, like, do you think the American dream is alive and is achievable? Or do you think you had to change something about yourself to fit in? Questions like that. And it's a pretty short video. And on that one, like, on the question of like the American dream, I'm like, yeah, I very much believe it's alive, and I believe that in the United States, as long as you're able to put in enough effort and sacrifice enough, there are many opportunities that you can get to.
Mm-hmm.
But like you said, the victim mentality wants you to like think that it's dead, that there's no such a thing as an American dream, and just be lazy, be at home, get money from the government, and or like go get a useless degree that the government's going to pay for,
Mm-hmm.
and then you're going to end up getting a job at Starbucks, and then be even more miserable than ever, and that's what they want. But you can notice with some of the people that are more liberal on that panel, like the ones that are like, no, the American dream's dead, it's not there. They're just like trying to make excuses, it just takes us back to the victim mentality.
Mm-hmm.
But I mean, it was a pretty good experience overall. Like, I liked it. I had a good feeling after I finished the filming that day, and a lot of the parts that I wanted to be on that video weren't there, because we had like one of the persons in that room. She was, like I said, she was born in the UK, has an Indian background, and she's a Muslim.
Mm-hmm.
But at the same time, she's queer. So, I mean, and I happen to like know Islam very well since I was born in an environment like that. And
Right.
I believe you can't be a practicing Muslim and a queer at the same time.
Right.
So that would have been funny if they kept that on the video, but they didn't. But it was a good experience.
Yeah. Do you feel like that helped you clear up a lot of the thoughts people had of you on the Jubilee video? Because looking at social media, people, I mean, they say horrible things, say that you're a self-hating person because how could an immigrant go on a panel with people saying things like, I don't want you here? But how do you feel? Do you feel that video allowed you to speak more on your true feelings and dispel some of those rumors and thoughts people might have had?
Not fully, because I mean it's a much shorter format. Like I said, they cut a lot of parts out. But back to some of those comments, like I told you earlier, a lot of people don't realize that it's random. You don't know who you're going to be, like who's going to be on your team or on your side.
Who's going to be on there.
So people think that I willingly chose to be roomed with people that don't want someone with my skin color in this country. But no, that's not the story. Like one of the comments of like this one of the how should I put it, like common things I've been seeing on like my comment section or private messages. They're like, oh, you're just trying to appeal to your white slave masters. Like, no, I mean, I'm happy to be an American. There's no need to appeal to like another race.
Yeah.
And that's one of the things that people don't realize. Everything's random over there. You don't even know who you're debating. So
right.
Which you're aware of that part too.
Yeah, but many people don't. And I mean, I grew up watching Jubilee videos. I loved hearing the debates. And you have this impression or these thoughts of how it's conducted. And I think once you actually go on the set, you learn that it's a lot different than it is on screen. Which I understand why they do it the way they do, but it's very interesting to finally film a video, as I'm sure you know, to film it and to know everything that goes on, and then to see the final product. And I mean, I've spoken to others who've gone on these debates before, and they talk about how they purposefully try to be very hyperbolic, say things that are a bit too much, things that they don't even fully believe, but they know that if they say it in a certain way, they'll get clicks. And so it's interesting. It's interesting to see the final product. And I'm sure even within the Jubilee debate, there was things that were cut out or, not added in order to make it look or seem a certain way.
Exactly.
Which that's pretty much every.
I mean, but it's not like you can do anything about it.
Yeah.
It's the recording is kind of their property, so they can do whatever they want with it.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay, so looking at the aftermath of filming that video, how soon after it was posted did you realize how big this was going to be, and what was your reaction to the memification of you on social media, the comments you've received? How are you doing?
So I remember it came out. I think it was a Sunday. I can't remember the exact date. It was a Sunday, but like it was around like 10, 11 a.m. in the morning. And right away, I started seeing like memes on X.
That's
I'm like, wow, like that was quick.
Wow, people get to work fast.
Yes. And I was laughing at it. I was just, having a blast. I'm like, people are being quite creative about like my looks. And I mean, I don't blame them because you don't see someone dressed like this on a daily basis. You don't see someone, having the ability to grow a mustache like this and maintain it. And then on top of it all, put a hat.
Yeah.
But, and for some context.
Yeah, I'm sure like, people are dying.
Okay, why do you wear a hat? Why do you have to dress like that? Why do you have to dress like, an oil tycoon or the Monopoly guy or like V for Vendetta or a Disney villain or someone who's trying to tie a distressed damsel to the train tracks? Why do you have to do it like that? Because, the answer is very simple. When you can grow a mustache like this, might as well put on a hat that goes with it. And on the other part, on the other hand, like, I just like to dress, have a tie on, have a, collared shirt on, and I think that's a pretty conservative thing too, to look professional, to like, maintain respectful appearance.
Yeah.
For example, like, I go to my classrooms, almost like this, maybe without the vest, but like the tie is there, the shirt's there, the blazer's there, and to me it's a sign of respect. It shows that you care to be in that environment because you put in the time to look representable.
Yeah.
And it also shows that you respect whoever else is in that room, like the professor, the other students, because like I said, you put in the time to look professional. And yeah, and like I said, the hat, just because of the mustache, it goes well. And
yeah.
and I think a lot of people agree with that statement too. But
yeah.
So as I was saying, the meme part, it's not every day that you get to see someone like that. So I wasn't expecting to become a meme. I was expecting, a lot of the hate, a lot of hatred and like death threats because of my views towards, Israel and Palestine.
Mm-hmm.
I was fully prepared for that, especially in this current environment, but the meme part, I'm like, that was a surprise. I'm like, that was a welcome surprise. I put it that way. And like I said, people have been quite creative, and the most recent one I saw was just a few nights ago, and I was just laughing at it for 5 minutes straight with one of my friends, and it's funny. I mean, like, I think people were expecting me to be mad about it or like cry over it, but I'm enjoying it.
Yeah. I find that people who are more grounded in the real world when social media is their entire life tend to do better when things like that happen.
Yeah. Well, I mean, you got to remember, social media is not it's not the reality.
Right.
It's just the views you see on social media are not the views that you would encounter in the real world. Like if you get on X right now, like you're gonna notice like a lot of like accounts that just blame everything on Israel and Jews. And then you go out to the real world and you look at polls, you're like, oh, like 70% of Republicans actually more on the pro-Israel side, and they're against Hamas.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, like it's important to know that there's a distinction between the two, and especially like on a personal level, it's more healthier for your mind, because if you think that those crazy views that you see on social media are like the exactly like that on the outside world too, like it's going to be like a very bleak and like bad feeling. You're gonna lose your hope in humanity.
Yeah, totally. Wow. Alrighty. Well, okay. Now looking ahead, you've done a couple Jubilee videos. You are going to your senior year of college? Junior year of college. What's on the horizon for you? What are you looking forward to?
Well, obviously, one of the biggest focuses is to get my degree done. Make sure I put my best effort into it, and on the side, of course, my campus activism will not stop, especially at a time like this. Like last month, we had the past 2 months. there was all these conflicts going on with like Iran and United States and Israel. And I personally believe that the Islamic Republic in Iran is at its weakest point since 1979, because we had a revolution back then. So it's important to help people realize that we are different than the Islamic Republic, that regime is very much hated by their own people, and world would be a much better place without them. And it's an important time to start talking about these topics, to start raising awareness that Islam is not a religion of peace, and we have to be careful with this crazy leftist movements that are like trying to make it seem that way. Like queers for Palestine, really. It's just
that's an interesting one.
Chickens for KFC. So that's one of the things that is pushing me to be as vocal as possible at a time like this, because like I said, I mean, as an American, I believe the Islamic Republic is a big threat to the world, not only United States but to the world. And world would be such a good place without them. Like imagine with the vast resources that Iran has, the amount of economical agreements that we could have with Iran, and how much money it could make for United States. So there isn't a better time than now to start talking about these topics.
And when you talk about the vast resources and how we'd be much better off without the government of Iran, what are you suggesting? People hear that and they think, okay, well,
definitely not boots on the ground. That wouldn't work, because people think, oh no, World War III is going to start, and we're going to have another Iraq or Afghanistan, with another never-ending war. See, the difference is, that the big difference that people don't realize is that, like I said, I'd say 80% to 85% of the population in Iran completely detest that regime. So if they are able to go out there to the streets freely and be able to take buildings or fight back the regime, have a fighting chance, they can take care of it on their own. We don't need to send troops to Iran, or even Israel doesn't need to send boots on the ground to take over the government and cause regime change. You can with enough help to the people, you can cause regime change from the inside. And there's already Crown Prince that has a plan ready, because that's the son of the Shah, who has been exiled since 1979. He has a plan ready. Once this regime falls, he's going to conduct a referendum to see what type of government people want. Do they want constitutional monarchy like it used to be during his dad's time? Do they want a parliamentary government like how Europe is? Do they want something like the United States? He's going to give them the chance to decide on what type of future they want, instead of being stuck with this dictatorship, with this Islamic dictatorship. So, like I said, I mean, Russia's too busy to help Iran. China is not going to send troops to Iran to defend. Syria has been, Bashar Assad, who used to run Syria, he's hiding in Moscow. Hamas has been weakened. Hezbollah has been weakened. The Houthis in Yemen have been weakened. So there aren't that many people to go to the Islamic Republic's aid. So when people say, World War III is going to start, no, it's just, I think they're called panicans. It's an over-exaggeration. When you have that much of the population just hating the regime, all you got to do is find the right way, the right channel to communicate with them and aid them to cause regime change from within Iran without using any troops.
Wow, that's really interesting. I could see that you really have thought about this in depth, and I would just be curious to know. I've really noticed a trend of young Americans, conservative or not, suddenly having questions about the whole conflict in Israel and Palestine. and where the Conservative Party had always been thought of the party that is pro-Israel. Now I'm seeing a trend of many young Americans questioning that. Why do you think that is? Why do you feel that there's such a trend of young Americans questioning Israel? And, even on that video where many far-right conservatives, I saw them talking about that topic.
Yep.
What do you think's going on?
And they also voted me out pretty quick too, because they don't like people with pro-Israel views to like share their views. So one of the biggest reasons why, it's, this is like a known fact that the Islamic Republic, with the help of Qatar, spends money on our education system, on our universities. Like, and that it's not a small amount. It's like millions of dollars. Like some of these protests, these pro-Hamas and cosplay terrorists, that's what I call them. Some of these protests, the organizers have been found to receive funding from like Qatar or like assets linked to the Islamic Republic. And on the other hand, the bot game on like bot, like robots from Iran has been very good. Like they've been able to flood social media like X, Instagram, YouTube with so many bots to paint a bad image of Israel and try to like win the PR battle, because they're like, oh, these dumb Westerners, they're not gonna understand anything, they love all this victimhood, mentality and like this colonial oppressor stuff. All they have to do is just like work on their minds and like present them some false data and like call this a genocide and all that stuff, and next thing you know people are going to lose support towards Israel. And it's crazy what they've been able to do, with the amount of propaganda they've been able to flood the internet with. And I mean, some of the comments I've received after this Jubilee debate, like they are bots too. Like you look at their accounts, it's a new account, it's anonymous, and they're just there to like to spew some profanity at you or like send a death threat, and that's it. They're there to scare you, to like to demotivate you, and you see the same trend going on like at other places too. It's part of their game, because they're like especially like people on the progressive side, they are all about emotions. All you have to do is just present some false data, flood the internet with our propaganda, and little by little Israel is going to lose support even from people on the right, or conservatives. And I believe that has been one of the biggest contributing factors. And there's another smaller one, which I think Israel's been taking too long to finish the job, and I feel like they had the capability to do it like within months.
And when you say finish the job, what does that mean?
Just eradicate Hamas, and without worrying about like aiding their enemies, because they've sent so much aid to their enemies. Like it's a war. You got to go in, finish the job, conflict maximum damage to make sure the threat to your country and your survival is done. Like it's not like two friends talking. It's war. It's not like happy things. And I think because they've been trying to like be a moral army in this conflict, and like provide aid to their enemy and all that stuff, this has been taking too long. And part of it obviously you can blame it on their on their planning and on their policies, but like the other part is when you have the Islamic Republic constantly funding like groups like Hamas, it's hard to just completely eradicate them. So yeah, I mean, like I said, the biggest reason is the propaganda. The other one is just this whole thing taking too long, because people get tired. Like people like you and me who are watching the news every day, they're like, oh, another new thing in the Middle East. Like, when is this going to end? Like, I'm just getting tired of it. So you can't blame people for that.
Yeah. Wow. Okay. So we got really in deep there, but I'm glad we got to talk a little bit more about that issue. But overall, thank you so much for coming here today.
It was a pleasure.
Yeah, the Lincoln Institute is grateful that you came to speak today. Project 07 is grateful that you came to speak today. I'm glad that you're representing conservative values in California.